Welcome to SoulFit Podcast with your hosts, Chrissy Moore, founder and life coach of Broken Beautiful Ministries, and Pastor Paul Ibarra from Set Free Life Church, a place where physical health and spiritual healing collide. Stay tuned to get SoulFit.
Are you looking to lower your energy bills and fight the increasing cost of energy? How about increasing the value of your home? Well, then do we have the answer for you? Visit our friends at southernsolartx.com for all of your solar energy needs. These guys are fantastic. Their heart's desire is to see each and every one of their customers turn into long-term champions at paying off their electric bills. For a free consultation, you can reach our friends at 817-751-8911 to set up an appointment, or drop them an email at contact@southernsolartx.com, and all of this information will be in the podcast details below. Now, back to our show.
Hey everybody, this is Chrissy Moore, and I'm the founder of Broken Beautiful Ministries, and we welcome you back to SoulFit. This is episode number 11. I am so excited, and I have my partner in crime here, Pastor Paul Ibarra from Set Free Life Church.
Hey everybody, what's going on? I am very, very excited. I mean, we say that all the time, right?
Because we really are excited.
We love doing this podcast, and so I'm just very, I'm just like very coffeeed up right now. I'm really juiced up because I just came from a men's breakfast that we just launched this ministry called The King's Men.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's pretty awesome. And so here we are in the lab once again, and we have a guest today, right?
Oh man, I'm so excited about our guest today.
Yeah, awesome. Her name is Alexis, and I know that I'm going to butcher your last name, Alexis, so help me out here and introduce yourself. Let us know where you hail from and tell us a little bit about yourself, if you have a website, or even introduce your podcast.
Okay. My name is Alexis Newlin. I've been a lot of places. Born in Ohio, grew up in Georgia, and now live in Fresno, California.
Wow.
It's where I work and where my church is. I am a writer and new podcaster. I just started podcasting at the beginning of this year because God told me to do it, even though I didn't want to, but it's been great. I do have a webpage. It's apeachincali.com, since I'm a Georgia peach who lives in California now, so I kind of broke that up. And
I love that.
So I've been writing, my whole life, but kind of put it on the back burner for quite some time until about 2018, where I picked it back up again, and God has made it blossom and has blessed me in every way in my writing. So it's just been a great journey these past almost 2 years. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm gonna stop you real quick. So you said Ohio. What part?
I was born in Cleveland.
Oh wow, I actually lived in Akron for about 6 to 8 years. That's actually where I got saved. Was in Akron,
really?
Ohio, and I got a lot of friends that are out in the Cleveland area. So I just find that interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
cool.
I like.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I like Ohio. My dad's side of the family's there. My mom left Ohio when I was really little because she was in a pretty bad relationship. And so never had really gotten to experience Ohio until about when I turned 22, when I found out I had other siblings, and I got to go over there and meet all of them. And so Ohio has a soft spot in my heart because that's where I found my other half of my family.
Right.
Wow. And so yeah, I love Ohio. I don't know if I could live there because of the weather. I'm kind of spoiled by California.
Right.
But I do love Ohio. That's one of my favorite places to go.
Well, I am excited that you're here, Alexis. It's such an honor to allow us to interview you. We heard your podcast, obviously, with Katie Joy, and I just started listening with your interview with Ron. I think it's Secura.
Yeah, I think that is what it is, but I butchered his name too, so I'm sorry, Ron.
I'm excited because just so far I've only been about maybe 7 or 8 minutes into the Ron's interview, and I turned it off when I got here, and I'm like, I can't wait to get back on it because he's got a very powerful story. But I would love for you to share with our listeners, because what caught Pastor's attention was brave. And I literally just talked to my daughter this morning. And I said, hey, sometimes you got to brave your way through it. And she just said, oh, I like that. And so when we listened to your podcast, Paul sent it over to me and I was sitting there. There's a lot of notes and nuggets, even speaking to Katie the other day, I wrote tons of nuggets down. And I wrote nuggets that you said as well. So I would love for you to just let our listeners know how did Brave get started? I know the Lord put that on your heart, but what is the meat of what and why did Brave get started for you?
So I grew up with a lot of fear. My mom was always a big worrier, and it kind of passed on to us. So we grew up very poor and not knowing, if we'd have our housing, if we'd have food, So I was very fearful growing up, and just let fear kind of dictate every decision I made. And so you can imagine that's a pretty stressful, anxiety-ridden life, and so I struggled with that quite a bit. And then I became saved when I was about 18 and still would struggle with fear until about, 2012, when I needed to move back home to Fresno. I was living at Phoenix at the time. And God was like, I want you to leave your job and come back home. And I was terrified. I'm like, there's no job back home. I'm basically going to start from scratch, have no money. And I was just really, really scared. And the Lord's like, don't you trust me? You just have to do, he calls them space jumps. Where I just have to jump out there not knowing if my feet are going to land. And that terrifies me.
Wow.
But with some encouragement, I finally did. And the Lord provided everything. I had a job that was difficult, but He provided a job and I had a place to live. And that's when the Lord really started working on my journey with killing fear, because it had just dictated everything, every decision that I had made, who I was friends with, what I believed at church, where I lived. It dictated so much. And the Lord finally just told me, you can't live this way. He's like, he goes, I'm not your God, fear is. And I'm like, oh,
wow.
That's not.
Wow, that's powerful.
And so he just basically taught me to do not be afraid. And he pointed me to Joshua 1:9, which is kind of the way it's the foundation of my ministry. It's be strong and courageous, do not be frightened or do not be dismayed, for the Lord God is with you wherever you go. I'm planning to get that tattooed on me sometime in the near future. He's like, that is your foundation. Just basically walk in that. And so I started doing that. So another job opportunity came up. I didn't know that I had it, but God had me quit my job before I knew I had that job, and He provided that, of course. And then same with housing. He kept doing things, making me walk in faith. And so still dealing with the fear quite a bit. And then in 2016 and 17, the Lord kind of started chipping away at my world, taking away people who kind of had that, who caused me a lot of anxiety and fear, and then just situations with family members just basically started chipping away and breaking things down, so I would rely on Him alone. And then I got diagnosed with cancer. And that's when I got woken up. It was okay, if I have this disease, because I have stage 4 thyroid cancer, and there's a good cancer to have. Apparently mine is one of them, because it's a slow growing one, so it will take forever to grow and cause me discomfort. But when I got that diagnosis, I was like, okay, how am I going to live my life? What am I going to do with what time I have? Because my doctors tell me I have 20 years. And the Lord has told me, disregard that. I'm going to heal you. So I'm basically walking that out, believing that, yes, heal. But I decided, what am I going to do with the time? What impact am I going to make? And what life am I going to live with the time that I have, now that I have this disease that's in my body starting to take my life? And so that's when I just started doing stuff great. I started writing. I applied to write for Daughters of Delight, which is an amazing ministry. And that was the first time I'd ever really written something faith-based and put it out there. And it got accepted. And so I got started, and I started writing for them weekly, which was just so fun.
Wow.
It was just so fun to be able to minister to people in that way. And then started writing for more organizations, and the cancer stuff was still going on. So I was still being told die, blah, blah, blah. And I'm still just plugging my head, still writing, still trying to be encouraging. And then I started going on these trips, because there's a lot of organizations for adults with cancer, which I didn't realize that. When I got diagnosed, I Googled what free fun things can you do if you have a cancer diagnosis, and all these organizations popped up. And so I started going on these adventures.
Wow. So
rock climbing, and I'm terrified of heights too. Rock climbing, and Tahoe and Colorado and kayaking, all these fun things I would have never done with complete strangers, which I'm an introvert as well. So like meeting people that I don't know or like going out there is a little terrifying too, but I did it anyway and have had some of the best relationships that have come from that.
That's awesome.
And so it's just been amazing. Like the cancer thing has kind of been an odd gift that it's kind of made me a little less fearful and more willing to go try things. And so that's what I've been doing. And so how Brave podcast started was I've been writing for a while, developed a website, which is terrifying to do, and like trying to develop a social media presence. And I'm a hider. And so like all of this was scary. All of this stuff was terrifying. And so the Lord told me back in July of last year, I want you to start a podcast and I want you to center it around courage and bravery. And I was like, no, I just said no. And
you're like, no, I'm good.
He's like, yeah. And he's like, well, it's going to happen anyway, but I'm going to let you sit on it. But this is what's going to happen. And I was like, oh.
Amen.
And so I thought way down the road, like years from now. I wasn't thinking like this year. It's starting. And so the Lord had me buy a microphone and headphones, and I cried the whole entire time. I'm on Amazon, like weeping because I was scared. I was afraid of like I was really scared, and I bought them, and then that's when the Lord started blessing me. So I had a really, really old MacBook, which is one of the reasons why I didn't want to do it, because my MacBook was like a 2011, and I use GarageBand to record now, and it would shut down after like 5 minutes of working on it. So I lose stuff. And I'm like, God, if you want me to do this, I can't do it on this equipment. You know, right. I need something that works. So I was just going to use my tax return and buy something new this year. But then the Lord put it on a friend's heart of mine to kind of be my sponsor. And so I ran into her at Trader Joe's, and she just started giving me money to go to a writing conference that I was like wanting to go to. So I was just like, oh, I kind of freaked out. I was like, whoa. She's like, just don't know that the Lord has told me to help you. And I was like, oh, okay. And then like 2 years, I had my MacBook, brand new, rose gold MacBook Air. And it didn't even know that I wanted that particular MacBook. Like it's what I had looked at like a year ago. And then the Lord provided it, and like a microphone and everything. And it was just crazy how I think God really wants me to do this. It's like, yeah, that it's like right in front of me that this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm on the right path. That's what I was also worried about too. Was it like blessed, or was it like really the Lord? And then when all that happened, I was like, okay, it's God, so I got to do it. Right. And so I spent October to December Googling and YouTubing everything I could on how to start a podcast. Good girl. And I don't have an audio background, so it's been quite a learning curve and stretch for me, but it's been fun.
That is so awesome. I can relate with you on the whole computer thing, because there's my Mac that I have now, which is the Mac Pro. And so that came out last year, the newest one. And so I was actually looking at it early that last year. I was looking at it, but it was just way out of my wife and mine budget. And so Chrissy's daughter, which she's my spiritual daughter, we went and had lunch one day, and she's like, "Hey, Dad." I said, "Yeah." She's like, How do you record your podcast? And I'm like, well, I do this on my iPad, and then I got to transfer it over through Dropbox and And the computer that I had was a really good computer, but I knew that I was supposed to donate that to the church that we were going to. And so then she's like, I have a Mac Pro that like, I don't even use it. And I'm like, okay. Whoa. And so she's like, you might want to come check it out. So that day I'm like, well, shoot, I'm going to go check it out. So I drove over there. We go and charge it up and stuff. And then I took my computer that I had to give it to her. And so she kept it for a couple of days. And I'm like, hey, how is that computer working? She goes, honestly, like, I don't even need it. Like, I don't need it. I don't use it. And I'm like, okay. So I knew that I was supposed to donate it to the church that I was at. So I donated it to the church. And so after that, once, I guess it was a couple of weeks later, her fiance, which they're about to get married this year, which it's just awesome. We're all excited and elated. She works for him because he has his own business, which they are our sponsors, Southern Solar, like the commercial that you guys hear when we enter into this podcast. But they went and bought her and the other partner, I guess the girl that works there too, the same computer. And so it's just crazy how your story like resonates with me, because I'm like, oh my God, like I can totally relate. And so praise God that you're at the place that you're at now. And so,
definitely.
Go ahead.
Oh, so no, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was agreeing with you.
Absolutely. So I see Chrissy's wheels turning. So.
Well, I was laughing with you, not at you, because you're like, what, God? And so first of all, I just love the way the Lord speaks to you, because that's how he speaks to me. And I know a lot of people will sit there and go, so how does God talk to you? I said, well, kind of like a conversation, like right now, like you're not going to do this. But a lot of people don't hear God that way. They hear him in a gut feeling, a sign or a song or a movie. And I hear the Lord a lot like you do. And I'm going to touch on this because you mentioned in your podcast with Katie that the Lord took you to the beach and you recorded a lot of your intro podcasting there at the beach. And the way he spoke to you was just so beautiful, because I love how God speaks to us in the sense he's like, look, just shut your mouth and listen. and go this way and turn left and climb up the mountain, and there you're going to get the view of the beach, and that's where you're going to record. So when you're talking about this on your podcast, I'm just busting out laughing, going, oh my God, that's something I would totally do, and God would totally tell me, shut up, just listen to me. So I wanted you to share that, because I know a lot of listeners struggle, because I struggled with, God, is that you? Is that me? Is that you? Is that me? Yeah. And you said something so profound. You said, obviously it was God, because he provided, obviously it was. And I just wanted you to kind of touch on that, if you can, to our listeners, because sometimes they doubt if they're even hearing from God. And so they stay sitting in their seat and they don't go anywhere. So. Okay. Do
you want me to share the story of the beach or
I would love for you to share that story with our listeners, because I think that's amazing.
Okay, yeah. So I usually go to the beach to hear the Lord better. I feel like that's like the ocean is a huge representative of God for me, because it's just so vast and enormous, and it's just so, there's things that are there that you can't even see, and I love going to the ocean. So if I really need God time, I go to the coast here.
Yeah.
And so the Lord's like, let's go to the coast today. I'm like, yes, because I love the ocean. And so I go and I walk around the beach and I listen to worship music and I just talk to the Lord. And I was supposed to go to record my podcast intros because God gave me that idea. So I'm like, okay, let's go do this. And so he's like, I got a place to go for you to record this, but I want you to go to like off the beach a little bit, because the shore was loud. It was like high tide. So like the waves were huge and it was windy. So you wouldn't have heard anything. He's like, I got a better place. Let's go. Let's go on a walk. So I'm like, okay. So we go, we're walking and I see this bench. I'm like, oh, this is a perfect spot. Like the beach is kind of like blocked by all the greenery, but I'm still near the beach. And God's like, that's not it. He's like, I mean, you can sit here, but I have a better view in mind. Keep going. So I was like, oh, okay. And so I keep walking. And I'm in flip-flops, and I had like a recent foot injury, so my foot hurt a little bit. So I was like, oh, this is kind of uncomfortable. Like, oh, here's another bench. And it was kind of facing completely away from the beach into this like marshy area with these beautiful succulents. I'm like, oh, that's pretty. I can sit here. And God's like, you could, but that's not the beach at all. And you're like, I have a better view for you up ahead. You should keep going. And I was like, oh, okay. So I keep going. And I come to this big open clearing. It's like a playground. There's tons of benches at this point. And there's like a few kids out running around playing. And it's still nice and pretty. And it's got a big view of the mountains. I'm like, I could do it here. And God's like, no. He's like, there's a beach view up ahead. I know there's a place to sit here. You should keep going. Keep going. So I keep walking past all these benches. And by this time, like, I'm tired. I'm like, okay, I just want to sit down and like do this thing. And God's like, nope, keep going. So I finally come up. I go around these bends and these curves, and then there's this like path that leads into the woods. I'm like, God, you're taking me into the woods? No, I don't want to go in the woods. And God's like, okay, there is a beach view up ahead. If you just listen to me and keep going, you will get there. Just keep going. Make a left turn here and a right turn, and you're there. I'm like, okay. So I go with all my stuff, and my stuff feels heavy, and I'm like, man, there's like 50 seats back that way. And God's like, nope, keep going. So I keep going. I go to the woods and it's all shaded. And I'm like, there is no beach view here. What is he talking about? And so I keep going. There's a bridge, cross that bridge, go take another right, like he said, and bam, there's the ocean.
Love it.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was just, oh, wow, there was a beach here, and it was it was off the path where I could see the ocean, but not hear the waves so much in the background like earlier. And it just had this beautiful, perfect clearing. I was like, man, if I had listened to like myself those like last couple of times, I would have stopped and missed this beautiful view. And so it tells me a lot about like trusting the Lord, because sometimes we can't see where he's leading us.
Right.
And we kind of listen to our own voices because like, sometimes I feel like God operates in like, not illogical, but things that are kind of too big for us to comprehend. And I'm not a very logical person. I'm kind of a dreamer, but like, I'm just I don't know. I like to go, like, I try to follow facts better.
Right.
Because it's just safer. But like, man, like if I had like found like my own gut and my own intuition saying, oh, I stop here because there's peak here and it's easy, and I would have missed out on this gorgeous view. Like, it was beautiful. And like there was like no one nearby and just beautiful ocean in front of me. And I was just so happy that I actually listened to the Lord other than listening to myself. And so that's just for people who kind of struggle with if they're hearing God. Because I occasionally sometimes I'm like, am I hearing the Lord or is it my flesh? And usually the Lord will provide in some way or speak to another person if there's something I'm struggling with. Mm-hmm. If I really can't figure out if it's him. I can also, what I've learned is I can tell if it's the enemy, if it's the way I'm feeling. If like I'm feeling like anxious or sadness or anger or any of that, like those thoughts, if those thoughts are entering my mind are like negative ones, I can feel it. Like when the Lord talks to me, it doesn't feel that way. I feel peace. I feel just comfort. It's like I'm talking to a friend. And like, I know people say like they don't have that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I guess that's just the way God talks to me. It's like the way I understand him best. It's just through conversation, and I forget that. And also I write too. So like, with prayer, which is something I'm always constantly working on, the Lord's like, you can always write to me. And I'm like, is that really fair? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, I can read. Like,
right.
There's always so many thoughts in my head because I'm always thinking things. And the Lord's like, just get it down on paper. It helps you like kind of organize them. And I can talk to you through that. And he does. Like, I'll write something down and he'll answer me. He's like, write this. And he'll write his answer to me. So it's really cool. Like,
I love that.
Yeah.
I love what you said. Alexis, you said God told you can stay here, but if you keep going, I promise there's going to be something way better. And I love that. That's such a profound statement because I'm dealing with a lot of self-reflection lately, and I hear the Lord just like you, but I feel like the Lord says, well, you can do that, but I have something better. And I always sit there and go, well, I'm just going to sit here then because I'm going to throw my little temper tantrum. And I'm just like, just whatever. I don't care about anything. And he always he's such a gentleman. He waits. He doesn't push. He just gently waits and says, come on, whenever you're done pouting, get up and I'll show you what, you need to see. And I want to encourage, all of our listeners out there, if you're struggling hearing from the Lord, but in your heart it is the Lord, because I'm speaking to myself, I'm preaching to myself. Don't stop moving, keep going, even though you can't see yet. When you get to that destination, you're going to be able to see the beautiful scenery that he has for you.
Right. Well, that also, just while you were talking about the journey, and I know that, some listeners are probably saying, okay, it's her recording her intro, so how does this relate to Abraham? It's the same thing, because every area that you went, you stopped and you spoke to God. And so Abraham created landmarks. And so I say huh?
Oh yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So I relay them to landmarks just because of the, just talking to people that are just in the world that don't know about, the characters of the Bible. So I name them landmarks, which are really altars. And so in every one of those moments, Abraham built an altar after God spoke. And sometimes our altar is going. Mm-hmm. It's not always this profound moment of, doves are flying and the wind just blew just right and this flower fell into your hair and there's the guy of your dreams because of the flower. No, sometimes it's the altar is really, the worship part is really go.
Right.
So you spoke, you kind of argued back and forth going, well, maybe, no, this is good. He's like, yeah, I mean, you could stay there, but keep moving. So your worship was really go. The next worship was go. The next worship was go until you finally reach that place of the promise. Now you're going, oh, okay, now I see where the journey's at and where it was, because that's the important part, is that we don't miss the mark. I was listening to one of my recent favorite pastors. His name is Darius Daniels, and he was talking about the message of Martha and the woman with the alabaster box and Lazarus and Judas and this whole thing. And he titled it, Give Him What He Wants. And so as she was worshiping him, washing his feet, I never knew this, but glory in those days for women was their hair. And so she was exchanging glory for his glory. She was exchanging what was most precious to her. Yes, it was the oil, but the act of worship wasn't the oil.
Right.
The act of worship was her hair.
Amen.
And and so as she's washing his feet and drying them off with her tears, this preacher broke it down, was like, listen, everyone's worship is different. There's people that worship and speak to God in one way. And it really opened my eyes, because I'm just going to be honest, whenever Christian would tell me before, well, I had this conversation with God and I was kind of like this. And he was like, well, this. And I'm like, God, don't speak to me like that. Like God tells me, God says, Paul, this. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm out. Paul, this. All right, cool. I'm going. Paul, this. Boom. I don't really ever have a dialogue with God. But what God has shown me through these last few weeks is that women are a lot more intimate. And so as a single woman, because once you get married, sad to say, but your intimacy with God isn't as tight and as deep as it is right now, period.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah.
Because now you've got your husband to cling to. And so that's another nugget that women have to understand too, that once you're married, you're going to have to fall under the rule and the structure of what the man is. And what happens sometimes is the women will be like, well, no, I'm going to have to pray about this. And it's like, no, I've already prayed. You're just going to have to follow, period. And so what I'm getting at is that you followed and you went in the worship and all of that stuff, even crying and looking up in Amazon and doing all of this stuff and going on there scared. You did it scared. But you were brave in the process. And so that to me is so freaking awesome, because one of the things that stood out to me earlier as you were talking was kill the fear.
Yeah.
Like you killed the fear. And so for the next few minutes, speak on that. Like, what things did you do in those moments to kill the fear?
I love that.
What did you do?
Like starting the podcast and cursing everything like that. Okay. To kill the fear, I've learned to just do stuff scared. You just have, like, you can feel fear, but do it anyway. And that's kind of my mantra. Like, I will be frightened, and then once it's done, the fear immediately goes away. Like, it's amazing. I'm like, oh, this was not as bad as I thought it was. And then the Lord will tell me, that's the enemy. He's like, I know when the devil really doesn't want me to do something, the fear amps up. Like, he just revs it up, and every, like, negative thought or every, like, horrible outcome.
I don't know what just happened, but we're going to dial back in.
Okay.
All right. So we're just going to keep this going. I just think this interview is really freaking awesome.
It's amazing.
Like, totally awesome. So just hold on, guys. We're calling Alexis back. She must have had a drop call. But
hi, this is Lexi. Leave your name, number,
we got
and
a
a brief
voicemail.
message, and I'll get back to you soon.
She's going to call back. I know she will. But guys, man, this is really, really cool. Like, just the whole concept, Chrissy, about brave, and how, to me, the whole thing is the whole thing on how she walked to that beach. Like the process to get there.
Yeah.
Right?
She one of the things that I was going to mention to her was she said walking was uncomfortable, because she had an injury. That in itself is so profound, because how many times are we walking with injuries,
right,
and brokenness, you know?
Absolutely. Hey, Alexis.
Hey, sorry about that.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to the show. We just kept rolling. So that's what we love about live podcast. We just love.
Oh, it's
No, not live, but we're live right now. So we're not even going to edit that out because we just continue to keep flowing. But yeah, go ahead and talk about killing the fear.
Yes, sorry about that. Okay, so like I was saying, I noticed when the Lord wants you to do something and the enemy doesn't, he'll ramp up that fear. Like he really will just he'll amplify things. And then once I've done it, it vanishes. It's like the enemy is like trying to throw in blinders to keep me to stop. And then when I finally do that thing, everything just drops. Because he's like, he has no more power. Because once you do the thing that you're afraid of, you take away the power of the fear. The fear just goes.
I love that.
I love it.
And so that's what I'm learning. And I actually did, like, the Lord took me on a fun kind of fear, like, exercise through rock climbing. So like I said before, I'm terrified of heights. Like, I absolutely am terrified of heights. And I love to rock climb. I love to be outside in general and to, like, be because I feel the Lord there most.
Right.
And so when you rock climb, once you go up, you have to come down, right? And so to come down, you sometimes have to rappel. And there was this one thing you had to go over that was like 160 feet drop. And so you had to back yourself off the cliff and then slowly lower yourself down. So in my mind, everything is saying you're going towards death because you're literally walking off a cliff. And when you rock climb, you have a harness, you have a rope. And so like that harness, it's got you. The rope can carry about 8,000 pounds. The anchors can do about 8,000 pounds. So like, I'm not that heavy, so it can carry me. And so, but in my mind, I'm like, I'm going towards a 160-foot drop. I'm insane. And so like my climbing coach was like, I've got you. Like, I won't let you fall. You just have to take that step. And so I leaned back like maybe like a millimeter. And he's like, okay, you got to lean back harder to get over. He's just like, really slow. It's going to make the process longer. He says, you just need to go for it. And so finally I lean back and I'm like in tears because I'm terrified of heights. And once I go over that lip, and like it was easy just going down. Like it was once I did it and went over that initial cliff and it was fun. Like I just jumped all the way down. And so like the Lord kind of showed me like, I'm your anchor, I'm your rope. He's like, I can carry you.
Amen.
Like you just have to trust me that I'm not going to let you fall, that I'm going to be there to catch you. If anything happens, you just have to trust me and just let go and go over. And so like a lot of killing fear is just like doing it afraid and then letting go and knowing that the Lord is going to catch you. So that's kind of what I've been doing in my life. There's times I need that reminder, like I'll still be scared. And God's like, what did we talk about? I'm your foundation. I will catch you. You just got to move forward. Because if you don't, you stay stuck.
You're right.
And
I love that. I love that you just said that. Stuck. That's our favorite word. Don't stay stuck, even though I got stuck, or get stuck sometimes. Right. So I love
it's awful.
So you mentioned.
Fear is a horrible thing.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying sorry. Fear is just a horrible thing. It's such a horrible, limiting thing, and there's so many people who are kind of like trapped in it and like are controlled by it, and it's just it's sad. Yeah,
and I agree. I've been fearful most of my life. Came out of a very abusive marriage, and I was even fearful in that. And when you jumped off the call, Paul and I were talking, and I told him, I said, the coolest thing that I just love is that she said she was walking while she was uncomfortable. And you had an injury. And I said, how many of us are walking with injuries?
Yeah.
And we're uncomfortable, but you kept walking, even though it was a recent injury, it hurt. And I know what it feels like, even if it's a physical injury. But what about those of us who have those broken pieces, and they're asking, how do you keep going when you're still so injured? How do you keep going? Because there's been times in my life and even now I'm really soul searching just a lot, asking God, what am I supposed to do? Do I keep going? Do I keep going? And I just feel like your story is so powerful. I would love for you to be able to speak to those people who are afraid to walk injured because we feel like we're not good enough to help other people because we're still going through our own junk, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. When I write, I'm often preaching to myself. Like, I still struggle with anxiety and fear quite a bit. Like, it's a daily thing to like have to lay down and be like, okay, like this is what I'm struggling with today, but I'm going to keep going forward. And that's kind of that's the advice that I can give is like, yeah, like none of us are perfect. We're all flawed, broken human beings, and we're broken. We're in a world that's broken, but like the Lord is the one who heals us and fills us up, and He wants us to walk in our brokenness. Like He wants us to. It's a testimony when you do. When people see you walking in your brokenness, it kind of shows them that, hey, I can do it too. Or, hey, I can be free. Amen. And I don't need to be stuck in my brokenness. But it's, yes, I've been abused, or yes, I have depression, or I'm anxious, but I can still like move forward despite having these things.
Right. You know, there's something that I heard the other day from another podcast, because as a podcaster, I'm constantly listening to other people's podcasts. And this particular podcast, he's a pastor here in Fort Worth, and his last name is Winfield, and he's part of the Potter's House. But he said that it was this statement, and it stood out to me, and I continue to use it every single day. You're broken because someone dropped you.
I like that.
But don't worry, they didn't know what they were holding. That's power. That's like literal power. And so the second thing that I want to touch on is you were both talking about walking injured. And like you said, people don't realize that it's okay to walk broken. It's okay. Yeah. And I'm to blame to try to fix people because of the ministry that I'm in. But that just really gave me a mindset shift to understand that I'm still walking broken. Like we're all still walking broken, because I just had this conversation with God the other day, and this one was a little bit different, almost like y'all's. Okay. So normally it's like I just tell God what I want and then I go do. Well, this time I was sitting there and I was reflecting on this conversation that this guy was having with Unique, with a good friend of mine that's a pastor. He started his own podcast called Crash the Pulpit, and it's powerful. And so, you know, when I heard that, I said, you know, for so many years, I heard from a church I was at, we're here to repair a broken world. But that whole mindset shifted that day when I said, you know what? We're not here to fix a broken world. We're here to point people to Jesus, period. Yeah. Like, it's not my job to fix Alexis. It's not my job to fix Chrissy. It's not my job to fix myself. Now, there's steps that we take in order for us to walk out the process. I teach that stuff, so I'm not going against that. There's application of the word. There's more than just speaking things into existence. You have to do things into existence, right? Right. And so the other thing that you know I wanted to touch on was when you guys were talking about going back, because I went around that whole mountain just to say this, that we're walking injured, we're walking and it hurt, we're walking and it's broken. But I think the most powerful part about it is that you are going in the right direction. So many times as people, we walk injured, but in the wrong direction. Wow. To where, like you said, sometimes we get so fixed on our voices that we think that's God. And I try to express that to people so many times. Make sure it's God, because your heart, even the Bible says your heart will lead you to destruction, because we're so fixed in our comfortability that we begin to think that it's God speaking and it's really us. Wow. And so in those moments, like you were on the path, even though it was scary, you saw a swamp and you were like, okay, well, I guess this will work. And God's like, no, I don't want you to do it in front of a swamp, because that's not where I brought you to. Right. And so when we're walking in the right direction, the pain and the injury is worth it. It's not worth it when we're putting all the stress and everything when we're walking in the wrong direction. And what happens is that place begins to be the normal. Yeah. We were talking this morning with the men, and we were talking about the dark places that we lived in our lives, right?
Yeah.
One of the guys said, well, dark actually gets to be the normal after a while. It's like when you wake up in the middle of the night to, we all go bathroom in the middle of the night. You wake up, everything's dark, but your eyes adjust to the darkness. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's the same spiritually, that we think we're in the right direction. And that's when God is continuing to try to veer us back. But we're so scared of the fear that we would rather live in the fear because it's comfortable. We're used to that. And so I'm just blown away by just this conversation. I just wrote something down earlier and I showed Chrissy, I'm like, this is good. Like, this is like a really good podcast. And, so yeah, that's what I wanted to intervene with. And, if you have any final thoughts as we wrap up, if there's anything that's in your spirit that'll help, I want you to speak to that one person that's listening to that podcast right now. What's in your spirit?
Okay. What I'm hearing, what God's telling me to say is do it afraid. Like, whatever the Lord has put on your heart to do, and it seems too big and impossible for you to do, you're right. It is impossible for you to do on your own, but God is there with you, and He can do it with you and help you succeed. So do it afraid. You're on the right path. You're doing what the Lord wants you to do. You just got to take that step forward and leave the fear behind and just keep going. And so that's just the one thing I say to people out there who struggle with fear: just do it afraid.
Amen.
The Lord will bless it. Just afraid. Yeah.
I just wrote this down, or before you said that, I said, do stuff scared.
That's going on a shirt.
Right. That's going on a t-shirt. But before we go, I just want to hear one more thing. What is next for Brave? What is going, I'm listening to that Ron interview right now, but what is next for Brave?
I have a couple of more friends who are coming up. One of my friends is a Christian entrepreneur. And so I was really excited about talking to her about being a Christian businesswoman and not being afraid to do that, and like how to like work, but also be working for the Lord. So I'm excited about that conversation. I'm going to Podfest next week. So I'm a little nervous about that because I don't know anyone there, but I'm hoping that I like walk away from that conference with a lot of new friends and a lot more resources how to be a better podcaster. What else is going on? I'm writing more, and right now I'm writing with Capturing the Idea at Blogspot. It's a little blog by Alexis Goring, who just basically writes inspirational blog posts to people, I think it's daily. And so I'm writing for them now. So I'm getting a little bit of writing in, because when I started podcasting, it took a hit towards my writing. It's been hard to do both.
Right.
And so I have to like be intentional and like set aside time to write more. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on for me. That's what's up next for Brave, and more guests hopefully. And
so I have to say something, Alexis. So, in the interview with Katie, she mentioned you should totally do podcasts about your words for the year. And for those of you who don't know, we pray for our words for the year. And I think you said this year your word was arise. Is that it?
Yeah.
Mine is order, and yours was vision. Yeah. And so we are anxiously awaiting those podcasts where you get to share your word for the year, but put it in a podcast form. I just had to throw that out there because that was really interesting. And I think it's going to be a home run to a lot of listeners out there, because Katie mentioned about she's not that person to pray for your words, but we even put our words on a t-shirt and we take a picture with it because it reminds us what our word is for the year. So when it's getting hard, we go back to that word and say, okay, we're going to arise. We're going to get in order, and we're going to have vision, The awesome part about the word also is that people think, like I thought last year, not this year, but last year, my word was perseverance. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm just going to persevere through stuff and all of that. I just want to put a disclaimer out there. Your word comes with the word, period. Because even the word of God says it's there to cut through bone, marrow, and spirit. Mm-hmm. And so when we find that word, trust me, I had to persevere from crazy adversity, backbiting, hating, best friend dying, having to take care of him
in cancer. Chrissy was right alongside us also. Started a whole new job by faith. My wife started a whole new job. We launched our church, and then we did, again, we put the podcast out there on the levels that we're at now, and continue to keep striving, and then came out with an online store. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. So whatever word you guys pick, those who are listening, really pray about your word because it will show itself.
Yeah.
It will. It really will. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Alexis, do us a huge favor and let us know what your website is once again.
Sure. My website is A Peach in Cali. That's spelled APEACHINCALI.com. And that's where you can find my podcast, my blog. If you want me to come write for you, there's an ad for that, and a little bit of my story is on there. That's where you can find me. I'm also on all the Instas and Facebook. I have not done Twitter yet. I have not been able to get to Twitter. But yeah, I do Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, awesome. I will ask if you could do me a huge favor and just message me all of your links because I want to be able to put all those details on this podcast as well. And I know from the bottom and the top of my heart, I'm so grateful and so thankful and honored that you would come on our show. And your story is amazing.
I love it.
So as far as me, I want you to keep on rocking. We're going to stay in touch. We would love to come and be on your show.
Yes, I was going to start next. Like, you guys have to come on. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So I'm going to leave it to Chrissy and we'll be signing out.
Well, I'm excited because hopefully one day if I ever make it to California, I've never been there, I would love to come visit you guys and just see what you do. But you spoke a lot into my life, a lot of nuggets that I took down. Do stuff scared is definitely what I want to leave everybody with. Alexis is brave. She definitely braved through a lot of things in her life, and I'm very encouraged. I stay very encouraged just by listening to your testimony and your podcast. And I just pray that everybody else gets out there. If you don't know, again, the name of her podcast is called The Brave. Is that right? And
The Brave Podcast.
The Brave Podcast, and blah, blah, blah. And they have some wonderful interviews with some really cool people, and it's going to speak to your life. It's a powerful message, and thank you so much for being with us. But I don't want to close our show without speaking our foundational scripture, which comes out of 3 John chapter 1, verse 2. And it says, "Dear friend, I'm praying that all is well with you and that you enjoy good health in the same way that you prosper spiritually." And this podcast has just been amazing with our special guest, Alexis Newlin, because she has definitely brought a lot of soul fit nuggets to all of our listeners. And we would love to have you back.
Absolutely. I see a part 2 coming up soon. So Alexis, will you do us a huge favor and will you pray us out?
Sure. All right. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this opportunity to encourage others and to be on the Soul Fit podcast, to share your light with the people who are listening. And God, I ask that you cover anyone who is dealing with fear and kind of point them to you, and knowing that you're greater than any fear that they have, Lord, and that they can always lean on you, and that you will always care for all their needs. And I ask that you bless Paul and Chrissy and the work that they're doing with their podcast and their ministries, and may they reach hundreds of thousands of people, that they may know that you are light, Lord. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and I thank you for them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Well, guys, this concludes our episode 11 of Soul Fit Podcast. I am Pastor Paul, your life recovery coach, and
this is Chrissy Moore, your Broken Beautiful Ministries life coach.
All right. Well, Alexis, we love you. God bless you, and we'll see you on part 2.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.